So, what's your story? How did you get into music? How long? So, like, as I mentioned when we were chatting, like the goal for this and the platform that I want to use is like the fact, like, I want to inspire artists to say, hey, you can actually make a career. Like for years, like I was told, there's no money in music. It's impossible to make a career out of it. And look, I get that it's hard, but if you're willing to put in the work, I think it's possible. I think that you might not be a millionaire, but like the person I'm talking about, like the general public, the person might not turn into a millionaire, but they could make a career out of it. And I would love to hear your story and how you pursued music and how you got to where you are, and any advice you have.
Absolutely. I was in a similar boat as you. You know, growing up, I had a really narrow view of what, making it in the music industry.
Yeah, yeah.
And heard those similar stories, like the music industry is fickle and scary and all that stuff. And so I went to college as a pre-dental major for a couple of years.
Wow. Okay.
And then, but I still had like enough of the bug where it's like, I should
Sure.
maybe try this music thing. Like I can always go back to school, but I
A
want
hundred
to always
percent.
like be, marketable and have youth on my side and all that. So, yeah, I just decided to try, just like joined a startup band in Minnesota when I was 20 years old and have been doing that sort of thing ever since.
That's amazing.
It's interesting to hear what you share with up and coming artists, because I feel the exact same way. I wish I would have known
Oh my gosh,
how
yeah.
many opportunities there actually are out there. It's a little easier now than it was then. That was kind of like the early days of the internet, where it was like a lot of like message boards and stuff like that. It's not just like hopping on Instagram and shooting someone a DM. Uh,
Oh, that sounds awfully familiar.
yeah. um, so back then networking was a little harder, but these days, I mean, it's like it's a breeze, really. So I'm in some ways like I'm envious of the up and comers now, but I'm super happy for them for that reason.
Yeah.
Um, and
I think it's similar in the sense of like, while there are more opportunities, there's definitely a lot more competition, I feel like.
yeah,
But I think that if I really believe that if people are willing to put in the work, I think if you're willing to grind it out and really just go for it, like treat it like a job, I think that that's the biggest thing. People think, oh, I'm gonna be a musician, and I'd love to hear your take on it. Like, I'd love to hear your work side of it, like how you like the work you had to put in and stuff like that. But people are like, oh, I'm a musician. I'm just gonna sit on the couch and eat chips all day, and then write a song at night, and then hopefully I'll be famous one day. And it's like,
yeah, it doesn't work out like that
exactly.
for sure. But I mean, the first thing I tell kids is I'm like, you have to absolutely love it. You
Oh
have to
my
be
gosh, yeah,
willing to do it for free before you even think about getting paid to do it.
yeah, that's good
Uh,
advice.
and so that's the main thing. Like, don't do it if you're like, I think I like music, then don't do it. If you're like, I live and breathe music, then do it. Um, but yeah, I mean, it was like I said, it started when I was 20. Joined up with a startup band with some unreasonable expectations. Looking back now, it's like we kind of had this impressive plan in place. We thought that we were gonna be able to just sort of like take over the gigs from an established group that was like sort semi-retiring.
Okay.
So we actually had their manager agree to manage us, and the plan was, yeah, we'll just like take over the gigs that you guys are saying no to, which is a great plan, except that a startup band is not ready to take over the gigs of a band that's been going for 20 years.
Yeah.
We just weren't like it. It took us a couple of years to just find our footing and learn how we do what we do, and be worth like the ticket prices.
Yeah.
So it
Was
just
that
didn't
like
work out.
wedding band, or was that like show band? What was
That
that?
was not too dissimilar from what I'm doing now. It was a vocal group,
Okay.
but it wasn't country. It was kind of like a lot of the vocal cover bands out there who
Okay.
try to do a little bit of everything. It was one of those. Actually, the band was called Blue Jupiter, and they're still going. So what they've done has worked.
Cool.
Um, but I was young, I was hungry. After like a year of it being clear that it wasn't gonna go like we hoped it was gonna go, then I sort of stepped back and I thought, okay, I'm gonna give this another year, And if it's like gained some serious momentum, great. I'll write it out. But if in a year from now, if it hasn't, I at least want to have an album out with my name and likeness on it, my voice, that I'm really proud of, and I want to have made some contacts in the industry. And if that's all that's happened, I can be so thrilled with the experience, and I can move on. And
Wow.
and that ended up being like what happened. So I gave it one more year, recorded an album.
So one more year as a musician, and then you were potentially going to go back pre-dental.
No, just one more year with that particular band.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask.
It was time to move on to something else.
Did you have a plan B in the sense of like, if music didn't work out in general, or were you like, no, I'm going to go for this, and that's it? You know what I mean? Or did you give yourself a timeline for that? Say, hey, if it doesn't work out in 5 years, then, I guess I'm not, you know what I mean?
I never really did that, honestly.
Yeah, neither did I.
The only thing I had in my back pocket was I had done some networking with one of the agencies that specializes in staffing like cruise ship groups.
Oh, cool, yeah.
So I like knew I could fall back on that if I ever needed to.
Yeah. Dude, those make good money,
It's a great gig, and that's one of the things. We'll probably go off on some tangents here, but that's one of the first things I tell kids who are interested in music is I'm like, listen, every single cruise ship out there has probably, I don't know, at least 50 hired entertainers on it, something like that. And there are more cruise lines than you even realize. Like there's probably 10 cruise lines you've never heard of, and each one of those cruise lines has 10 ships, and each one of those ships has all those entertainers I just mentioned. So just the cruise industry alone is an incredible resource. It's also a way to like find out if you really want to do what you think you want to do.
Yeah, you're doing it 7 nights a week for 6 months. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's almost, I mean, I'll be honest, I took the cushier gig than that. But it's also just like one of those things where it's like, this is your life. Like you're gonna basically disappear for 6 months.